here with Keith Shank of Ericsson's Advanced Technology Lab. Keith, what are the consumer expectations for LTE?
I think you can best summarize it by I want it and I want it now and I want it all. That's really the consumer thought of it. They don't really know what they're going to get. And that's partly because we over-technicalize items. And that's a weird word, but that's the only thing I can think of to use. We come in and we tell somebody we're going to give you 5 megabits of streaming. What does that mean? They have no idea. Only thing I know is if the number's bigger, I want it. And that's partly the problem that we've had in the industry about showing off what can be done. Because we're not looking at what's going on in the industry as a whole. If you look at the whole industry of, let's say, video. I'm going to send you a TV video. Well, it used to be thought if I wanted HD video, I had to have 20 megabits of streaming video down to my device, whatever it is. Then we take in encoder technology, and the encoder technology has been growing rapidly from where it was 12 megabit, now it's down to just over 2. I can get the high definition video streamed to me. So it's really more along the line of we need to tell a story to end consumers. Let's forget about the megabits, they're really not consequential. What I want to tell you is the kind of things you can be delivered, making you part of what we view as a network society. And it's bringing all those pieces together. Then the subscriber goes, I just want everything I have. Another famous comedian used to say, I want my stuff everywhere I am. And you can have my video, my information, all the things that I have with me anywhere I go.
A lot of the demos that we see today can be done on today's networks, on 3G networks and even earlier. What changes when we add LTE to the mix?
Number one, the network becomes all IP. So you can do a lot of really neat things with all IP networks, especially as an operator. Now I can go and say, just like a regular IP network, I can say this subscriber gets this much capacity, this subscriber gets X capacity. I can set it up based on the application they're using or based on the subscriber. That gets very important for a lot of different reasons. Now I can tier my service as an operator, so I can have different classes. If you as a subscriber don't want to pay for high definition video capabilities that are all the time, I just want a 512K video because I just got a little phone. I don't have to pay for that much. I can set it up that kind of a deal. If you look at the other differences, yes, a lot of bandwidth. People talk right now about all the different technologies, how much bandwidth I get. 7 megabit, 21 megabit, 48 megabit, 100 megabit. Well, look what your real usage is going to be. As a typical subscriber, somewhere between 5 and 12 megabit is going to be very standard in the LTE networks. Not right now. Right now that's a lot more because there's just not that many users on the networks. But as it gets overloaded and compacted with users, that's where we see the real change. That's what LTE brings you. Being a broadband network, I can now pack a lot of subscribers and give them all very good service. Other things that it brings you, latency. Latency is that weird feeling you get when you're doing a satellite call and you have a delay between the time you talk and they talk back to you. Latency in a 3G network is well over 100 milliseconds on an average, if you look at what it is. It's north of that. In an LTE network, it gets down below what is considered real time. It's in the area of 35 to 45 milliseconds. Now, as a young person, you're supposed to be able to tell the difference between about 50 milliseconds or so. At my age, it gets down somewhere over 50 milliseconds. But it's looking at what the purpose is. I can now do a video call, the lips move at the same time the images move and the sound comes in. As a video gamer or a gamer, I can play just as fast or faster than I can connected to a wired network. In many cases, I can compete with other people that can do that. That's the big differences you get. Capacity, bandwidth, yes, of course, and the latency change and billing ability. I can now segment my billing as an operator and as an end user. I can decide which tier billing I want to use.
What changes about the consumer device business whenever LTE networks become the norm?
LTE is going to change the game for consumer device makers in several ways. Number one, there's going to be a standardized technology that they can utilize for several years in the future. LTE stands for long-term evolution. The technology is going to evolve, but this gives them a basis to where they can put a standard chipset. Instead of worrying, am I GSM, am I CDMA, am I LTE, HSPA, am I EVDO, I can now build one chipset. The operators are also going to start looking more toward devices that are soft SIM technologies. So there's actually not a card that you have to plug into it, it's electronic SIM technology. So I can provision it quicker. That way I don't have to spend time getting it provisioned ahead of time. So the device makers now have a standard technology they can begin to deploy, standard bands, and they can make it much easier in order to provision it. It's a lot simpler to build.
For service providers, LTE is more than just a network upgrade. What changes about their business model when LTE is introduced?
As service providers begin to launch LTE, they're going to get to change the way they do their business concepts towards subscribers and how the models are going to be done. They're going to be able to change it instead of just saying, here's a base amount of data you get. They can now change it to say, how fast do you want that data? Do you want to buy best effort? Do you want to buy a standardized 2 megabit, 4 megabit, however much speed they want to offer? They can change that model. And they can also change the model for, do you want to be able to have this all the time? On certain applications, do I always want my video streaming to be best effort, or do I want it to be high quality? I can now change that model to subscribers to charge them not only for how much they're connected, but how much data they're using and how fast they're using it. It's a little bit of a change for the operators. Very important if we look at 50 billion devices and connections, because I cannot charge a Coke machine what I charge a normal subscriber. It has to be a different kind of a rate. Much like what Kindle did with the technology as they incorporated it. I'm not charging you for every time you turn it on and stream a book down. I'm charging you in the book so you don't see that connection. That's important for an end user because you don't feel like you're being taken all the time for subscriptions. You're buying a service.
Keith, thanks very much for talking with LRTV.
Thanks, my pleasure. Happy to have been here.